Shankhya and Vedanta, Part 1. I shall give you a resume of the Shankhya philosophy through which we have been going. We, in this lecture, want to find where its defects are and where Vedanta comes in and supplements it. You must remember that according to Shankhya philosophy, nature is the cause of all these manifestations which we call thought, intellect, reason, love, hatred, touch, taste, and matter. Everything is from nature. This nature consists of three sorts of elements called sattva, rajas, and tamas. These are not qualities but elements and materials out of which the whole universe is evolved. In the beginning of a cycle, these remain in equilibrium, and when creation comes, they begin to combine and recombine and manifest as the universe. The first manifestation is what the Shankhya calls the Mahat or intelligence, and out of that comes consciousness. According to Shankhya, this is an element tattva, and out of consciousness are evolved manas or mind, the organs of the senses, and the tanmatras, the particles of sound, touch, etc. All the fine particles are evolved from consciousness, and out of these fine particles comes the gross elements which we call matter. The tanmatras cannot be perceived, but when they become gross particles, we can feel and sense them. The chitta, in its threefold function of intelligence, consciousness, and mind, works and manufactures the forces called prana. You must at once get rid of the idea that prana is breath. Breath is one effect of prana. By prana are meant the nervous forces governing and moving the whole body, which also manifest themselves as thought. The foremost and the most obvious manifestation of prana is the breathing motion. Prana acts upon air, pranayam. Pranayam is practiced to get mastery over this motion. The end is not merely to control the breath or to make the lungs strong. That is dilsate, not pranayam. These pranas are the vital forces which manipulate the body while they in their turn are manipulated by other organs in the body which are called mind or internal organs. So far so good. The psychology is very clear and most precise, and yet it is the oldest rational thought in the world. Wherever there is any philosophy or rational thought, it owes something to other to Kapila. Pythagoras learned it in India and taught it in Greece. Later on, Plato got an inkling of it, and still later, the Gnostics carried the thought to Alexandria, and from there it came to Europe. So, wherever there is any attempt at psychology or philosophy, the great father of it is this man Kapila. So far, we see that his psychology is wonderful, but we shall have to differ with him on some points as we go on. We find that the basic principle on which Kapila works is evolution. He makes one thing evolve out of another because his very definition of causation is the cause reproduced in another form, and because the whole universe, so far as we see it, is progressive and evolving. We see clay in another form, we call it a pitcher. Clay was the cause and the pitcher the effect. Beyond this, we cannot have any idea of causation. Thus, this whole universe is evolved out of a material, out of Prakriti or nature. Therefore, the universe cannot be essentially different from its cause. According to Kapila, from undifferentiated nature to thought or intellect, not one of them is what he calls the enjoyer or enlightener. Just as is a lump of clay, so is a lump of mind. By itself, the mind has no light, but we see it reasons. Therefore, there must be someone behind it whose light is percolating through Mahat and consciousness and subsequent modifications, and this is what Kapila calls the Purusha, the self of the Vedantin. According to Kapila, the Purusha is a very simple entity, not a compound. He is immaterial and the only one who is immaterial, and all these various manifestations are material. I see a blackboard. First, the external instruments will bring that sensation to the nerve center, to the Indriya according to Kapila. From the center, it will go to the mind and make an impression. The mind will present it to the Buddhi, but Buddhi cannot act. The action comes, as it were, from the Purusha behind. So these, so to speak, are all his servants, bringing the sensations to him, and he, as it were, gives the orders, reacts as the enjoyer, the perceiver, the real one, the king on his throne, the self of man who is immaterial. Because he is immaterial, it necessarily follows that he must be infinite. He cannot have any limitations whatsoever. Each one of the Purushas is omnipresent. Each one of us is omnipresent, but we can act only through the Linga Sharira, the fine body. The mind, the self consciousness, the organs, and the vital forces compose the fine body or sheath. What in Christian philosophy is called the spiritual body of man. It is this body that gets salvation or punishment or heaven, that incarnates or reincarnates, because we see from the very beginning that the going and coming of the Purushas or souls are impossible. Motion means going or coming, and what goes or comes from one place to another cannot be omnipresent. Thus far, we see from Kapila's psychology that the soul is infinite and that the soul is the only thing which is not composed of nature. He is the only one that is outside of nature, but he has got bound by nature apparently. Nature is around him and he has identified himself with it. He thinks, I am Linga Sharira. I am the gross matter, the gross body, and as such he enjoys pleasure and pain. But they do not really belong to him, they belong to this Linga Sharira or the fine body.